Part 4. I go by 12Drawings as my name, and I'm just giving my own personal story. Um, I hope my drawings stand on their own. They're really meant to call attention to the original 12-step literature, not to me. But um, yeah, I was working my way through the original 12 steps straight from the big book, as described by two what I will call old timers, people who had also struggled, but eventually uh, got sober. And it was not starting to make sense. They weren't really teaching me anything. It's more like my eyes were starting to open to something I had not been able to see before, even though I had been looking very hard for that thing. A way of looking at things that was more hopeful rather than helpless. And um, so eventually, in something that had nothing to do with these drawings, as I was in the middle of the 9th step, which is where in the 12-step program you're making amends, um, all of a sudden I couldn't remember the last time I had really wanted to do the thing that I could not possibly stop before. And it took a long moment for it to dawn on me that that condition had not been achieved through willpower. It had been achieved through working the steps and getting up to step 9 and started to make amends to people that I had harmed. And I began to experience what are called the 12 promises, which are also, a subject of the series of drawings in this series. And so I was astonished. And what's so funny is I don't know why, because all through the book and in all the meetings, they had been saying, if you take these steps, you will get the results that we got. And they said it, and I did not work the steps, and I did not get the results. And it just never occurred to me that the problem was I was not working the steps. So once I was working the steps, I did get the results. And I was restored to sanity by a power higher than human power. I mean, it's amazing how people who've been through the 12 steps sometimes sound a little robotic, because we kind of chant these phrases and things that make you think, yeah, that's not normal. You sound like, the last 10 people I ran into. But it's sort of like threading a needle, that there's only one way to get through that particular hole in the needle. And so it's not surprising that you uh, struggle in similar ways to get to thread that needle. But once you've done it, it's a whole new world. You can do anything you want to after that. You're not a robot. You're not forced to repeat things. What I did was to suddenly, just with all my heart, want to share what I'd experienced with anybody else who was still suffering, and with helplessness and powerlessness. And I worked the rest of the steps and just became energized. Instead of the guy who had pushed that heavy door open, trying to get into my first, force myself to go into my first 12-step meeting, and thinking my only other alternative was to end my life, I now felt I wanted to help anybody who wanted help. And I did. I sponsored multiple people, and the ones who worked the steps the way that I described them, the way that Joe and Charlie had described them, they got sober. Other people lost interest. They wandered away. They didn't call back. They didn't come back, and they didn't get sober. Or maybe they got sober some other place with someone else. So I'm going to hit pause and then start the next, and hold on just a moment.